Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for another round of legendary crafting. Today we're going to spend some time crafting legendary railway rifles. My goal is to get a quad explosive railway rifle. I think that's probably your best bet out there in terms of super powerful OP railway rifles. I've got a vampire's explosive one that somebody dropped for me on stream the other night, and it's pretty awesome. And I've been using it a lot, so why not try and complete the set? The Vampire's Explosive is awesome, but if there's one drawback to the railway rifle, it's that it only holds 10 rounds in the magazine. So if we can improve that with a quad, well, maybe that'll do the trick. We'll find out. Remember, if you like videos like this, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. There's always a lot more to come on the channel. Without further ado, let's see what we can get. Alright, I've got 10 of these crafted up, ready to go, and our first roll is going to be... Ooh. Okay, well, not what I was going for, but still a pretty good one. We've got an anti-armor railway rifle with bullets exploding and extra perception. So, explosive on a railway rifle is awesome. Basically, your explosive effect is a certain percentage of your overall damage. So when you have a high damage weapon like a railway, it's going to do really, really well. Now, this one is an anti-armor, so we're not boosting the damage number of the weapon, but we're defeating our enemy's armor curve. So it basically just ignores half of their armor. So that's always a good thing to have. In this case, though, with a railway rifle, the way damage resistance works in Fallout 76, basically, the higher the damage you're doing, the easier you defeat your enemy's damage resistance. So a weapon like this isn't going to be all that great in terms of general farming. It'll be great. It'll be great just because it's a railway rifle with exploding bullets. So it's going to do really well no matter what. But where you're really going to see it pay off is going to be big tanky enemies like bosses, where you're going to get a little more, where it's actually going to do some armor penetration, where when you're just going around killing ghouls and scorched, they don't have that much damage resistance, so you're already getting past the vast majority of that without any trouble. We also have extra perception here that's going to help us with VATS accuracy. That's good on this weapon because this is very much a VATS-centric weapon. Let's see what we can do for our second roll here. That was a pretty good one, but it wasn't what we came for. This one, sadly, not nearly as good. Here we've got the Exterminator's effect, where we do 50% more damage to Mirelurks and bugs. I find that fairly useless. I don't necessarily mind having an armor piece with that on, but for a weapon, I'm not going to keep lugging around a weapon just for that effect. Sorry, not going to cut it. Replenishing action points with each kill. That effect I kind of like on this weapon. Again, it's a VATS-based weapon. Especially if you have an automatic receiver on here, you're not going to do a whole lot of free aiming with this. So anything that can help keep our AP up when we're using a weapon in VATS is good. I like that effect. Extra perception, again, going to help our VATS accuracy. Unfortunately, with the Exterminator's effect on here, probably not worth keeping around. This one I think is all too likely to get turned back in for script. Let's try again. And now we've got a Mutant Slayer's railway rifle with bashing damage and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. So the Mutant Slayer's effect, it's another one of those situational damage effects, not unlike Exterminators, but the difference here is killing super mutants is a thing that we do a lot in Fallout 76, whether that's a daily op or an event, or we just want to farm super mutant locations for XP. So having a weapon that's designed to target super mutants isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world to do. Our second star here, bashing damage increased by 50%. Guess what? Bashing damage sucks. Unless you have a shredding barrel minigun, bashing damage is a complete waste of everyone's time, and I really, really, really wish it would go away. VATS critical meter filling 15% faster. Again, not a bad thing. VATS-centric weapon, tons of recoil. You're gonna use this in VATS, but it's not better than the ones I have, and it's not what we came for, so let's try again. Alright, and now we've got a Juggernaut with 25% damage while aiming and extra perception. Now, it's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of the Juggernaut's effect on most weapons. However, on this one, it's kind of interesting. If you're a commando, and you're not going stealth, then, you know, it is kind of hard to run bloodied, or at least harder than it would be if you were a sneaky character. So not doing the low health thing could be kind of intriguing here with a railway rifle, especially because they do so much damage to begin with. So the Juggernaut's effect, if you wanted to run full health, it only gives you a 25% buff, but that's still a 25% buff, and 25% of a railway rifle's damage, that ain't nothing. So that's not a bad thing. If you couple that with something like Adrenal Reaction, where you'll do more damage as your health drops, because that will actually outpace the 25% for being full health. If you get into a big fight and you start taking hits, it'll kind of balance those two things out a little bit, so you've got a little bit of a damage buff all the time. So this could be a good choice for someone who prefers to run full health, even though there are more powerful options out there. Sadly, 25% damage while aiming is kind of lost on a weapon like this, unless you're maybe going to put a scope on it and use it like a sniper rifle. Realistically, though, for me as a commando, again, it's getting used in VATS, so that effect does nothing for me. Extra perception helps with the VATS accuracy, but doesn't really make up for the bad second star. And yeah, Juggernauts could be interesting here, but it's definitely more of a niche kind of effect. Let's try again. And we've got a Medic's railway rifle with the last shot effect and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So here's another one that I'm not a big fan of. We're going to start with the second star here. Last shot effect. Last round in a magazine has a 25% chance to deal double damage. Sounds good on paper, right? Sure, sounds good, but this magazine holds 10 rounds. So if I have a 1 in 4 chance, then that means every 40 rounds, I can deal double damage one time. Maybe, if I'm lucky. That's not amazing. It just isn't. On top of that, if you do a tactical reload, where you're reloading this weapon as you move around instead of letting it actually deplete the magazine, well, once again, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that. So, not in love with that effect here, although with a 10-round magazine, it could be more useful on this weapon than others. Damage resistance while reloading, that's kind of helpful if you're going to run your magazines all the way down instead of tactical reloading, then maybe that makes it a little easier. But our primary effect here is Medics. That's crits heal you and your group. If I can't have vampires, Medics would be a secondary choice, and a solid one at that. It's not going to give you the kind of constant health regeneration that you get from vampires, but if you're running this with a VATS critical build to begin with, you're going to land a lot of VATS criticals, so you'll heal yourself, and your teammates will get some healing. So, especially in something like daily ops, that could be a very useful thing, especially in the one where you can't sneak and everything is shooting at you constantly. So would I still prefer vampires over this? Yes. Would I still prefer something with explosive over that last shot effect? 100%. But the Medics effect is at least kind of intriguing. Not as intriguing as vampires or quad with explosive, but kind of intriguing nonetheless. Let's keep going. And our next roll is another dud. Ouch. Okay. Assassins, 50% damage to humans. Last round in a magazine. Again, we got the last shot effect. And this one, hits have a chance to generate a stealth field. So, in terms of PvE gameplay, if you need extra damage with a railway rifle to kill human NPCs in this game, you are doing something wrong with your build. Humans in Fallout 76 are super squishy. So this thing should be annihilating them left and right, even without that effect. So not a lot of use out of that. Maybe you could make an argument that it could be useful in PvP, but with a 110 per shot damage cap, I think you should be doing that already. So probably not getting a lot of mileage out of that. We talked about the last shot effect at length with the last one. It sucks and I don't like it. And then we have the stealth field effect, which is kind of an interesting, cool idea. It's kind of a cool looking effect, but I just don't see it being very useful. The reality is if I use a railway rifle with a stealth boy, my enemies can find me, and I can't imagine that's going to be any better than that. So that one, definitely a dud. This one is also pretty much a dud. So here we've got, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. Bashing damage, totally useless on this weapon, so might as well not exist. Stealth field again, not going to be getting anything really useful out of that. Maybe you can use it to get yourself out of trouble a little bit, but I don't know. I don't buy it. I just don't think the game reacts quickly enough to changes like that for it really to matter. The Nocturnal Effect, on the other hand, that's a little bit interesting. A few months ago, the Nocturnal Effect got a buff. It used to do negative damage during the day and increase dramatically at night. Now, there's no more negative effect during the day. It only gets better at night. It's still not consistent, meaning the later in the night you go, the more powerful it gets, but it's much, much better than it was. So here is a great example of something where, for me, I have an anti-armor, I have a vampire's explosive, I've got all this good stuff. This one isn't going to do the trick for me, but if you didn't have a good legendary railway, a nocturnal one isn't the worst thing in the world. Basically something that's going to give you a big damage buff for half the time in the game and then still be a really powerful weapon for the rest of the time. That's a pretty solid, pretty good deal if you ask me. So something you could certainly run with, and you can time when you use it. If you really want to maximize it, drop your nukes at night before you go after Earl. Wait to trigger encrypted until nighttime. Do your daily ops at night. You get where I'm going with this. So there's things you can do to kind of maximize something like this. So it's not a bad effect. Unfortunately, the second and third stars leave a lot to be desired. Let's keep on keeping on. One more here. Well, more than one more, but okay. This one is an interesting one to talk about at the very least. Anybody who's been watching the channel for a while knows that in general, I am a fan of the Executioner's Effect. However, it is more useful on weapons that do lower per shot damage. The advantage to Executioners is it's still essentially a multiplicative damage effect unless they've secretly changed something that I didn't notice, but I'm pretty sure it still is, so it does a lot more damage when your target is below 40% health. Very, very useful, especially on weaker weapons. On a weapon like this, most of your enemies are going to be dead in 1 to 3 shots, so for general farming purposes, you're not getting a lot out of Executioners. With that said, if you're using this for boss fights, Earl, Encrypted, Scorch Beast Queen, hopefully some new boss fights that come down the line if they ever decide to give us some endgame content so we can actually use all this cool stuff we get, then the Executioner's Effect is definitely going to be more valuable even on a weapon like this. So this one is one that, if you've got good second and third stars, probably worth keeping around, but not going to be super useful for general farming purposes. We've already talked about bashing damage. It's garbage. Extra perception will help us with VATS accuracy, so that's not bad. I don't know if an Executioner's with bashing damage is going to be good enough to justify me keeping this in my stash that's already getting kind of full, but the Executioner's Effect would be very interesting with this weapon in the right situations. For general use, not going to get a lot of mileage out of it, but for bosses, it could be good. Hopefully you can get one that has a better second star than I just did. All right, now we've got 2 more to go, and we've got an Aristocrats with AP refresh with each kill and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. Now this is a really interesting roll. This is very, very interesting indeed. So this is not at all what I came here for, but it's definitely an interesting version of this weapon. The Aristocrats effect is, in my opinion, the best full health legendary effect you can get. You don't have to make any trade-offs to get it, and you get a 50% damage buff. All you have to do is save up over 29,000 caps, and you get a 50% damage buff. Now, that's not going to be convenient for every player, but for a lot of high-level players, that's not a hard thing to do. Much like that Juggernaut's effect, if we want to pair that with something like Adrenal Reaction, then you have sort of an even balance. If you take hits and your health drops, you don't really lose out on that damage effect, which could be very useful. Now, that's important on a railway rifle because, again, it's not a stealthy weapon. It's super loud. So it's not one where going full bloodied is really all that easy. You make a lot of noise, you take a lot of hits. It's hard to stay alive with a bloodied railway rifle. But the weapon is super powerful to begin with, so running it at full health is actually still pretty good, and you can stay alive pretty effectively and kill your enemies with much efficiency. Now, to make this even better, you've got a second and third star that synergize well with each other. We're replenishing AP with each kill. It doesn't totally refill your meter, but you kill things really fast with this, so you're going to keep boosting your AP, which is good because, again, high recoil weapon, definitely a lot of VATS use. VATS critical meter filling faster means what's going to happen? You're essentially getting 15% more VATS criticals. That's a healthy little damage boost on a weapon like this that's already super powerful. So those two things pair very well together. The Aristocrats effect makes it much easier to run this at full health and then just allow something like Adrenal Reaction to kick in when you need it, not necessarily relying on it all the time. So this is a really good solid roll on a railway rifle. Still wish it was quad, but not a bad one. We've got one chance left. Let's see what we can do. And it's a Berserker's railway rifle. Ouch. With VATS hit chance and again a chance to generate a stealth field. So, the Berserker's effect, much like Nocturnal. It did get itself a little buff a few months back. Not so much a buff, but a revision in how much it sucks. It now sucks significantly less. You used to get a negative damage penalty if you had too much damage resistance, which was basically if you had almost any damage resistance. That is now gone. So if you have some damage resistance and you're running a Berserker's weapon, it no longer does negative damage. That is good. They didn't really buff the main effect, though, that much, if at all. And to me, that's pretty disappointing, because in all reality, it's much harder to stay alive in this game without armor than it is to stay alive as a bloodied build. As a bloodied build, you've got so many perks that help keep you alive at low health that synergize with that build, and yet you still get the highest damage of any legendary effect, and you have other perks that give you more damage. So there's a lot of synergy there, and that's why bloodied builds are so powerful and so popular. Take something like Berserkers, where it's actually hard to stay alive, and you get a 50% damage buff, and that's it. So why would anyone choose to run a Berserker's build? If it's going to be hard to stay alive, well, why not go with Bloodied, where it's a little easier to stay alive, and I get a lot more damage. And I get to wear unyielding armor, so I can have tons of intelligence and get lots of XP, and have more strength and carry weight, and all the benefits that go along with that. This is where Berserkers could really use something. I'm not exactly sure what that something is, but a 50% damage buff, and that's the end of it. Well, that ain't it. That's hit chance on this weapon. One of my favorite effects in the game. Doesn't sound as flashy as explosive or faster fire rate, but the reality is, lets you target enemy weak points where you can do damage multipliers. That equals more damage. Make no mistake about it. So that's a great effect. Unfortunately, it's still a Berserker's weapon. And here again, the stealth field. I mean, maybe if you're gonna run this as a Berserker, anything that can help you stay hidden is good, but I just don't see that being all that effective. So this one, for me, definitely not a winner. We did get a couple of winners today. We got an anti-armor explosive railway. That's going to be really effective. And we got that interesting Aristocrats one with the VATS effects for the second and third stars, which could also be really interesting. So we got 2 out of 10 good ones. Didn't get what I came for, but hey, that's why we play. We keep trying, and hopefully one day we get lucky. But that is going to bring us to the end of this one, folks. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter. There's always a lot more to come on the channel, and I hope I see you all next time.